the regular session are approved. There are warrants on the table, and you have a line item transfer?
We do have a line item transfer from Mr. Londa, and a request to transfer $1,000 for maintenance of building supply line. The starting balance in that line was $53,000, and that would move it down to $52,000. To the repair of equipment line, whose starting balance was $3,150, so up to $4,150. And the reason for the transfer is that we find ourselves in need of this to cover repairs on various maintenance equipment, including tractors, mowers, and snow throwers. So I'm recommending approval of that for the reasons, and once again, out of maintenance of building supply and into the equipment repair for necessary repairs.
Any questions? Okay, thanks. And there are warrants on the table, so feel free to sign those. Mrs. Collins?
Okay. Well, welcome back. Happy New Year to everyone. It is a blustery night out there and will remain so. I'm sure that the members of our school community have already received the notice that we're going to do a 2-hour delay tomorrow. The safety and health of our students is always our top priority, and we want to make sure that we give the temperatures a little bit more chance to rise as far as they're going to rise in the morning, and just make sure that our transportation as well as all our facilities are where they need to be and ready to support students when they're there, and staff. So a 2-hour delay. Also, Mr. Spadafino sent out a message to the high school, but I want to thank the members of the Lunenburg Fire Department as well as our maintenance crew. There was a heating pump, circulation pump over there that a coupling on it, the friction caused a lot of that to heat up, and then we had some smoke, I guess is how I'll refer to it, and that took some time to clear out in the area, at the utility area where it occurred, as well as a couple associated classrooms. So we did not have to vacate the building. It was identified, and as I said, we had the fire department come down and assist us with clearing some of the odors and the smoke, if you will, out of the impacted areas. So thanks to everyone on their help with that. Also, I wanted to pass around the Worcester County Superintendent's Association Scholars Luncheon was yesterday, and so Mr. Spadafino and I had the opportunity to travel with Brooke Hansel and participate in that, where over 70 scholars from Worcester County schools were recognized for their accomplishments. It's always a very positive, uplifting, and hopeful luncheon, because along with scholars as well as just exceptional young people such as Brooke is, we see that and hear so many examples of the great work that the youth of this country and of this county are doing. So that I wanted to share that program with you, and congratulate and thank Brooke again for all her contributions. Also, just for the public's knowledge as well as the school committee, I want to remind you that you have received the Collaborative's report, FLAC's annual report, as well as financial statements. That's available for review and any questions that you might have. You're not required to approve that or take any action on it, but we do want to make sure that the public is aware that those reports and financial statements are available and can be obtained from FLAC or from any of the superintendent's offices from the member districts. So if you're interested, just simply send me an email communication, or as I said, contact Richard Murphy, the executive director of the FLAC organization. Also, I wanted to let you know that we received a communication from Capital Planning today, and in that communication, they indicated that our request around the additional $34K for funding for the asbestos removal was ranked as a low priority. They are requesting some additional information. They are mindful that I believe it was 138 that was appropriated last year that hasn't been spent. comment is available. And so I talked to Mr. Londa about this, and I have asked him to come talk to you about one of the ways that we're going to suggest to you to respond. You know, we had a rather lengthy conversation about this asbestos removal during several school committee meetings. And in that process, came up with a new strategy in terms of addressing that. So Mr. Londa's going to share with you what we would propose in terms of a response to the chair of the capital planning at this point. Mr. Londa, thank you.
Thanks, John.
So the question that the chair of the capital planning committee prompted was, is it important? It's important for their committee to know the plan the school department has, I believe, for the $138,000. So I think that's what the question was. If the $34,500 that additional that was requested does not get approved. So looking at that, my recommendation would be is that we go out for bid with the 138 now. We craft an RFP or a bid proposal that has a base bid that includes all the work that's needed to be able to execute the future relocation of the school department headquarters to the middle school. Take the 2 rooms that are not included that were part of phase 1, have those as an alternate 1 and an alternate 2, and get some firm numbers in place for a end of June asbestos abatement project lined up. And then we'll know with some hard numbers what it's going to cost for phase 1. And that might allow us to just get started now. We also would probably be in a very favorable bid environment since we're bidding work that's, you know, a good 6 months out. So that's kind of the approach that I think makes sense, short of, you know, deciding that we don't want to proceed forward until the full 172,000 that I think it is probably going to take to do all the work that was in phase 1 is appropriated.
Okay. That makes sense to me because we need to get that work done so that we can next summer move, you know, do our reconfiguration. Is that your recommendation?
It is, yeah.
You guys have any thoughts? You okay with that plan? Okay. That sounds like a reasonable response to capital planning, and it lets us move forward regardless of what the decision is by the capital planning board. So thanks. I think that makes sense. Okay. Anything else?
I believe that concludes my superintendent's report tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mackin, do we have a school building committee update?
We had our 21st construction meeting today. We remain on schedule, on budget. We are expecting the completion of what they call the A phase, that first high school wing. The steel is almost completely finished, the steel erection. It went up very rapidly. And they're going to start moving on to Section B. What will happen then with Section A is at some point it will be wrapped, if you will, so that it has some kind of protection from the elements. And it will also be, the law requires that we light it 24 hours a day for safety reasons. So there'll be utility lighting in the building. You know, we're going to, you know, try and get the word out to the neighbors that they understand what's going on, which is that for you know, safety reasons, we have to keep the building, its interior lit with utility lighting, basically 24/7.
Okay.
Good
thing electricity's cheap.
Well, it's also something that we don't pay for.
Oh, you don't pay? Excellent. That's even better. Good.
It's part of the project.
Good. Thanks.
I mean, we are paying for it, but it's part of the project. They're then beginning the B area, which includes the auditorium, art rooms, some music rooms, In fact, next Monday, we're expecting there are steel trusses needed for the roof of the auditorium. They'll be delivered on Monday. That looks like it's going to be a very big operation. But they're moving rather quickly. They've really not lost much days, even with the bad weather. Tomorrow, I'm presuming we probably will have a lot getting done, but so far, everything in the schedule shows on schedule.
And the capping off is coming up soon.
March is when
March.
is when we're talking about it. Probably mid-March is what we had talked about previously. I'm sure as we get a little bit closer, we'll have a firmer date and information on it.
Great. Anything else?
We will be meeting again next Wednesday at TC Passios. It's an open meeting. The public is invited.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. Okay, old business. It's time for us to review the final Quebec trip information. Mrs. Beardmore?
Yes, Mrs. Beardmore is here to talk about the students attending as well as the final arrangements. And thank you, Mrs. Beardmore, for coming out. Of course, this doesn't quite coincide with Carnival in Montreal, but it will coincide with winter and cold temperatures. So here's a warm-up, right?
Yeah. One of my students asked me the other day, do they really wear snow pants when they're walking around? And I said, oh, yes, they do. So it's good practice
And
for
we'd
them.
like to recommend that, and we'd like to take the opportunity to recommend that our students wear that tomorrow morning as they're preparing for school.
Exactly.
As well.
Snow pants don't come in shorts?
What's that?
Snow pants don't come in shorts?
No. So everything has come together nicely for our trip. The hotel address is listed at the top of the paper I just gave to you. It's actually a little bit nicer than what we're used to, this hotel. We just got lucky this year, and it's right outside the city walls of the fortified city, the old city. So it'll be a wonderful location, and there's an indoor pool, so it'll be a lovely hotel. We have 10 students from high school going, 2 parents that actually went last time as well that had a great time and want to come again. My daughter is also coming, so and myself. And so the final cost to students was $669, which actually was $30 less than what was originally quoted, which rarely happens. So that was a wonderful thing. We did combine with another school, that the same one we combined with last time, Carver, Massachusetts. I do know the teacher, so that's what allowed the cost to be what it is. And it also allowed us to maintain our itinerary despite being such a small group. And our itinerary is the same as it normally is. Lots of outdoor activities, doing the toboggan ride down by the Chateau Frontenac, a tour of the old city, going to see the Musée du Fort, excuse me. The tubing at the village, the Village des Sports, which is it might sound like it's all fun, but it's actually a very cultural experience too, because there are French-Canadian families that are there, so the students are interacting with other families, they're interacting with the people that are working there. It's a wonderful experience for them. We'll see the parade for the Carnival, and on the third day, one new addition to the itinerary was a visit to a bakery. It's an artisanal bakery using the old techniques, so that'll be a nice experience for them. Dog sledding, ice hotel tour, and our final concluding Sugar Shack visit, where we get to sample lots of maple sugar products and maple syrup, etc. So, and it's a Friday to a Monday.
Sounds wonderful. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
And I do stand corrected. I remember now that we adjusted this in order to make sure they could enjoy Carnival, or a portion of it. So they will have a taste of Carnival.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
So recommend approval. I really appreciate Mrs. Beardmore reaching out and coordinating with other schools, and as she indicated, that relationship, that travel partnership worked well for our students, so it's nice to have that in place and be able to offer these kinds of opportunities for a reasonable price for our students, because it's a great experience. So recommend approval.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, and have a great time.
Thank
We
you
look
so
forward to
much.
hearing about it when you get
Stay
back.
warm.
The pictures of poutine for us, please.
I will.
So jealous.
Okay, we're up to second readings on a couple of policies, so we'll start with 3202 tuition and fees. Any feedback on that one?
We have not received any feedback on any of these after first reading. I'll be doing a superintendent's update. We know that these went out right before the holidays. I
Right.
know they've been posted at the website, but we'll be sure to call them to our school community's attention during the next superintendent's update at the end of this week. So,
Okay.
yeah, these are put in place basically as updates for the most part, and also just some philosophical statements around environmental sustainability practice, which are helpful for us to have in place relative to our building project for the analysis that they do in order to classify us as green school. So. And they're all practices we're doing, they're just codified now in putting them in the policy the way we have. And then, of course, the Diversity Advisory Committee was a recommendation that came out of a special advisory last year, and our Civil Rights Coordinator, who's Mrs. Henscom, will be facilitating that, just to keep our eye on diversity and how to provide opportunities and be mindful about opportunities for diversity for our students,
Okay.
to assist them in learning to live in a global society.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the second reading.
Okay, is there a second on that? Is there a discussion on them? Okay, so we would encourage people to get online, find the policies, and read them, and give us your feedback. We'd love to hear feedback. Unless we decide to do something else, normally we would have our third reading at our next meeting. So this is the best possible time to give us feedback before we enact the policies at our next meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No. Okay, thank you. So new business, recommended budget. Ms. Combs.
Yes, those that have been watching us for the last couple months are aware that all our departments within the school department have presented the recommendations, as well as our principals for each one of the buildings, and certainly made some very fine recommendations, some of which we've heard in the past in terms of what the needs are, particularly around our curriculum and instructional program, how we continue to try to grow offerings, add AP courses at the high school and what it takes to support that, as well as update and meet some basic requirements. If you saw Mr. Spadafino's presentation, you'll remember that we have a couple of textbooks that are used for AB classes that now are over a decade old, and it is critical that we have them replaced so we can continue to offer those programs. You know, we do a fine job at the high school, our faculty, in offering these advanced placement opportunities for our students. They're well participated in, and we want to keep that program strong. It's vital to our school and our community to have those offerings at the high school. We also have some recommendations that are supported in this budget around professional development, and that is with regard to some additional training on some updates to instructional materials at at the primary school with our math, the math program down there, which needs to be updated, and we want to make sure we provide the professional development to the faculty for that as well. And then the professional development to continue with our AP courses. Our teachers participate in trainings that are provided by the AP in order to make sure that we keep the fidelity to that instructional program that's required. And also, of our interest and strong desire to put in place an advisory at the high school. At the primary, our elementary grades, as well as our middle school grades, we have done a lot of work around different kinds of programs, such as responsive classroom, as well as developmental designs, making sure that we're providing opportunities for students to work on social emotional development and have that support, have students have the opportunity to be with caring adults in small group settings on a regular basis, and have seen such really positive outcomes from that. You will recall that Mr. Barney and the high school faculty several years ago did an investigation of an advisory at the high school, and it was recommended at that time. We continue to work with our faculty in terms of how to put that into the program, and still keep the rest of the academic program strong. And with this recommendation that we have, this provides for approximately $8,000 worth of professional development that would be made available to our teachers, and then we could really begin to look at implementation of that program the following year. So that's what's contained in that particular budget. I think, once again, the other requests that we heard, those were the highlights around that non-personnel side of the budget, were around themes that we've had for the last couple years, that we have had requests of needs for all our instructional programs in terms of updates to the curriculum, both curriculum adoption. This takes us at a curriculum adoption budget that's been very, very thinly, if any, funded for the last several years, and moves it up to the level of $75,000, which still is only about half of what we had been placing into curriculum development in prior years, prior to the financial crisis of 2008. Every year we say, okay, well, we'll look at this next year, the need's really there. We are at that point where we really need to address this issue. And I think that we have some opportunity this year with some of the reductions that we've seen relative to the special education costs. You know that we are also trying to reinvest in our program to make sure that we have the capacity to serve as many students as possible and have high-quality services here within the district. So you heard Mrs. Hanscom talk about an overall special education budget that was $200,000 less than what the total budget was last year, that being driven by changes in terms of out-of-state to out-of-district tuition, but also with the knowledge that we've already begun that reinvestment process in terms of our transitions program at the high school, that we leveraged money that came available this year because of some changes, and the potential to return students, which we did, not to mention the potential that has been achieved in terms of keeping students and providing for their needs here and providing quality education services. That program has more than doubled its payback already. So that is the kind of results that we can get as we look at reinvesting some of the funds that were utilized in that manner back into the program itself to build the options here. And these are new programs for us. These aren't programs that necessarily went away, but these are programs that we're seeing greater and greater need within our students to provide, and therefore we're putting those programs in place here. We did this over 15 years ago with our programs for students with substantially separate kinds of needs, some programs for students with autism, as well as other developmental delays, and we've seen the benefits of that not only for those students, but for all our students across the district, and across it's become such a notable part of our environment in terms of our commitment to providing for our students here within our local community, and that opportunity to attend school with the other children from your neighborhood and your community. So we saw that on the expense side of the budget, the non-personnel side of the budget, we're seeing there an increase of $217,000 totally when all the pluses and minuses get balanced out there, which means for that particular portion of the budget about a 4%, 4.03% increase. Now that includes some increases that will be required in terms of just some movement into the operational budget once again of salaries for some of our staff that were still being paid out of non-resident kinds of funds from our agreement still with Shirley students that are attending, and we're down to the single handful of students for that, and virtually eliminating it by next year. But also some health insurance coverage. So that's also leveraging, as well as some recommendations for new staff that were made. Not all of them have been incorporated into this budget. So I'm going to pause right here after that big overview. It's the budget was posted online. You can go in and you can see the pluses and the minuses in terms of each of the individual lines. There's been some increases in transportation that we need to incorporate in there. But that's very clear by a line item analysis. So I think that in describing our increases on that side as really focusing upon some professional development, as well as some very necessary curriculum adoption, and just replacement of some of the curriculum materials that we already are using, because we've just exhausted every supply that's available. Our art supplies in each one of the buildings, our libraries, as well as just those general materials, workbooks that students are using. You know, this year down at the primary school, one of the programs that we were very excited to have in place, and the need for teaching writing, just the physical act of writing to students, the handwriting without tears. You know that program has been limited in terms of our ability to really implement it with any kind of fidelity because we weren't able to provide the workbooks to the students this year. So the teachers are being creative. They're working very diligently to fill in the gaps, but these have been gaps that have been there year after year after year, and it's really critical, I feel, as superintendent, that we get these addressed, and I feel we have an opportunity on the expense side to do that this particular year. So with that, I promise, as I promised, I'll pause and see if there's any questions or comments from the committee at this point in time.
Comments? Thoughts?
No? Okay. So then I'd like to go ahead and move to the personnel side of the budget. And when we look at the personnel side of the budget, we know that what I'm recommending is right at $300,000 worth of additional staff for the school district for next year to meet student needs. When we looked at the recommendations at the end of the day from our principals, we know that total was higher than that. In fact, it was almost doubled from that. So not every request, which had good supportive rationale behind, is included in this particular recommendation from the superintendent, because we are mindful about the continued fiscal climate, and we're also very mindful about our need to be able to sustain any changes and additions that we're putting in. And so my recommendations, if I can just go through them with regard to the primary school, there was a recommendation for 5 paraprofessionals that be added there at the primary school. I'm recommending that we add the 3 that we already have documented need for in terms of meeting students' individual needs down at the primary school. Also recommending about $12,000 of increase to our paraprofessionals to provide some after-school supports to students, before or after-school supports. We, during one of our workshops, saw some real positive and very compelling evidence about the fact of what a little extra time and attention and what that can mean in terms of students' performance. And so I'm certainly supporting that recommendation of increasing some paraprofessionals. Basically, the paraprofessionals 1 hour a day, 4 days per week, and that would cost right at $12,000. And as I said, we saw good evidence of the impact that that could reap, and so I'm recommending that to you, which Mrs. Blaisdell had recommended, and that's not for every paraprofessional at the primary school. That's for 1 paraprofessional per grade level, basically, to make that available 4 times a week. Okay. At the middle school, the requests there, Mr. Santry requested 3 paraprofessionals. You know that we've heard that there is this desire to get back, so each one of our teams will have a paraprofessional associated, the teaching teams there. That was something that was in place. Now, we started losing that capacity in 2008, and I think every year we've heard from Mr. Santry that the recommendation of the clear evidence that was there in order to support students in their learning, but we just haven't had the capacity to put it in place. So that's what he had recommended. At this point in time, I don't see us being able. I think we need to continue to look for other options and ways to do this, perhaps before and after school work there as well, to articulate how we might be able to support students. I hear from Mr. Santry that part of the challenge that we face there is around transportation and making sure that we can provide transportation. So we'll continue to look at options around that and how we might be able to meet that need. So I did not recommend that in this current budget. However, I did support the recommendation that we put in place 2 additional teachers at Turkey Hill Middle School, and those 2 teachers would basically be for classes where we have 130 students or more already enrolled and attending our schools, and we anticipate those to continue to go up. One of them will be the 4th grade, and the other one will be the 6th grade at the middle school. The 6th grade has been a class that has a pretty long history of just increasing in enrollment, and it has now reached that point of 134 students. So those classes are running 26 and 27 students, and we are compelled at this point in time to look at adding teachers to address those needs and those class sizes. The stakes for our students are very high, and we want to give them every opportunity to be successful. And we feel that lowering those class sizes a bit is very appropriate and necessary at this point in time. So,
Just to comment on
Yeah.
that, as class sizes shrunk, we were very meticulous about reducing our staffing to adapt to the
Yes.
shrinking class sizes.
Yes.
We have to expect that as the class sizes grow, we have to grow the faculty. We can't, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. When things shrink, of course, we have to reduce staffing, but we are seeing growth in our student population, and it would be irrational to expect us to be able to achieve the performance we need to achieve without corresponding growth in our staffing.
A decade ago, we began that very thoughtful and strategic decrease in terms of dropping classes because we were seeing those smaller class sizes. And that has been maintained in some classes, but in other classes, we've seen this increase every year. The numbers keep going up, and for some reason, some of them started pretty high even as kindergarten. So we really feel that this is important. The accompanying, besides the health insurance costs for adding that, an accompanying cost for putting 2 additional classrooms over at Turkey Hill Middle School would be a desire to put a mobile lab in place, because we in effect would lose that upper computer lab that is on the second floor. We'd need to put a classroom in that. Moving forward, we really feel that mobile labs are what we want to do in the future. We don't want to be using spaces for desktop computers. The whole logistics around that is just not appropriate and not efficient anymore. But this would really force us the hand in terms of either eliminating one lab completely or eliminating that lab in that location and making available a mobile lab. And that a mobile lab's cost is $15,000. So that's an accompanying cost there. We anticipate with the 2 teachers as well as the health insurance, we feel that when we're budgeting for health insurance, we usually do that at the upper limits, a family cost as opposed to a single cost, just to make it sure that we're being reasonable in terms of what it may cost there. But that brings the total increase for the middle school in terms of personnel to $125,278 based upon what we anticipate in terms of the teachers as well as the health insurance. At the high school, or at the primary school, that increase was $103,000 with the health insurance for the 3 paraprofessionals. Then at the high school, we have a request the request was for 2 additional paraprofessionals at the high school, and that's to assist with some staffing of classrooms and providing support in classrooms, as well as to maintain our common planning time for our teachers there at the high school. Also there was a recommendation, Mr. Spadafino did recommend the addition of another English language arts teacher. Right now we are working that department with only 4 English language arts teachers, and we feel that moving that up is very important in order to be able to differentiate and offer a greater variety of English classes for our high school. So, but I was not able at this point in time to support, given the other suggestions for personnel and how I prioritized them as a superintendent. And so at the primaries, or at the high school, the total increase would be $62,000, and that would be for the paraprofessionals. And we'll have to look at that teacher, ELA teacher, again next year. Mr. Londa has for, I believe, at least 2 years and probably more than that, because it goes back to the time when we lost the maintenance personnel during the extreme year that we cut over $1 million out of the budget. But he has consistently recommended and documented the importance of having another maintenance worker, and that with personnel, with the health insurance, would be another $53,000 that includes the health insurance as well as the salary for that position. I think that we continue to work very diligently to meet all the needs that are out there, but there are areas that are not being addressed as a result of not having adequate staffing for that. And then finally, in our special education department, Mrs. Peskin has recommended several positions, an out-of-district coordinator, as well as someone to work, another behavioral consultant, a BCBA, to work in the district, which was a position that we added a couple years ago, and once again has more than paid back what we've invested in that in terms of being able to meet the needs of students and serve those students well within the district. There was also a recommendation for some additional paraprofessionals, 5 additional paraprofessionals, and then health insurance. What I am recommending after reviewing those requests is the addition of the behavioral consultant, the BCBA, because I feel that that is another situation for providing services for our students, like the transition program that we put in place at the high school, where it will meet the needs of our students, it will provide support to the staff working with students, and it will save dollars in terms of making sure that we're providing the kinds of services that are required within our district, so students don't have to be placed outside for those. So that is what I recommended there, plus the health insurance, for a total in special services increases of $77,000. So overall, $421,614 worth of increase, which is over half of the increase in personnel that's being recommended is driven by those new personnel requests. So that's an overview. We are preparing a comprehensive overview for the budget hearing that I know we'll be scheduling at one point in time. As you recall, several years ago, we started putting together a very comprehensive budget document that includes information from enrollment to out-of-district placements, as well as non-resident in choice statistics, and that is being put together and will be available and for the public in the next several weeks. So, but that's the overview. The total increase then recommended in terms of the superintendent's budget is an increase of $1,020,000, brings our the recommended general operation budget to $17,775,000, and a total increase of 6.09% overall.
So, we're not at the end of the road, of course. But I seem to remember when we had our workshop on performance that Mr. Santry had a very compelling argument for those paraprofessionals, and I think it's important, if we're going to continue to improve our performance, to address those sorts of needs. So I'm a little surprised that I understand you're balancing putting down what you think are the
priorities.
Right, you're prioritizing things and trying not to come up with a budget that's completely unsupportable. Do you think there are really other ways to achieve those gains in performance that I think are sitting out there waiting for us to, without investing those dollars?
I think that we need additional data. We certainly have data that shows what impact what the impact was when we had that staffing.
Right.
We also have data, however, that shows that we had other schools that weren't necessarily staffed at that level that were doing some things to ensure students were progressing as well. So my perspective is that we have to have more, or I need a greater sense of superintendent that this is the only way. That would be the only way we can get there. And I think that we need to explore a couple alternatives and continue to look at how we can support all our learners and get the progress that we need. It is a difficult situation because we know that we've been at a level 2. Our district is basically at a level 2 to a large extent because of that level 2 rating that is happening at the middle school and the grades associated there. And it is a compelling argument, but as I look across the district at the needs and having to prioritize them, and as you said, Dr. Berthium, approach a budget that we feel that we can engage in a conversation and not have everyone just say, well, there's no way we can do that. That this is the starting point from my perspective as a superintendent for that.
Okay. I just would like our audience to be aware that this is not a generous budget, that there are things that I at least believe we should be doing that we can't afford to do in this budget, even if we're funded at this level that's unlikely to be supported by the town. So I find it eternally frustrating. But do you guys have any thoughts?
I'm thinking how to phrase it. Just if we look at the middle school as Turkey Hill as that area that is, I don't want to say dragging us down, but is bringing us to a little bit of a, no, not necessarily dragging us down, but it's a level 2, right? Mm-hmm. So I would, much like you are asking, I'm wondering why not try to address some of the issues there. And I think Mr. Santry, in this case, and frankly in almost every case, has compelling reasons. I mean, he's one of the strongest leaders we have, and so I wonder why we wouldn't focus there. Why you're prioritizing some of these other things over some of the requests from the middle school.
So I don't want to get into these are your priorities, you have to prioritize them. But what I might suggest is you set the clip line a little higher.
That's fair.
Right.
That's absolutely fair.
Right.
Because I think it would just, as parents at home may say, well, hey, well, what about, as always, they're going, every parent in every school is going to say, well, what about our children? And just trying to help them understand, these are the priorities and this is why. Right. I think that'd be beneficial to everybody who's watching at home.
Right. So it's also reasonable for you to make this your recommendation and to blame us for increasing it, because I'm happy to take the flak for saying that there are things we need to do that we can't do in this budget, and I think we should. I'm willing to ask for a larger increase than that, because I think it's important for our students.
And when he asked for the 3 paraprofessionals, what grades in particular were they going to? Was it certain grades?
Well, it would put 2 paraprofessionals at every grade level at the middle school right now. We're sharing 4th and 5th. We have 1.5, 1.5, 1 and 1.
Right. So it's tight.
So and we can certainly go back if the school. I mean, we know what kinds of results we got for that. Certainly the recommendations for an English teacher at the high school are similar. And it truly was looking at this and saying, what are the most urgent in terms of keeping what we have right now as strong as possible, knowing that our professionals are working diligently every year and every day with the resources that are made available to them. And, already knowing that going in with a 6% increase, when the target that's been provided to us is 3.5, and starting to make some of those hard decisions now rather than later.
And it's not, for me, it's not about, it's not about saying that people aren't working hard, right? That's not what it is. As parents will hear what we're doing from a budget, I think it's just wise of us to be able to say, hey, this is what we prioritize, and here's why. I think it will help you to communicate. It will help your building administrators understand, because parents will come and they're going to ask the tough questions. They always do. And usually, unfortunately, sometimes it's not tough questions. They just huck rocks right at the budget and say, well, why did you do this? That's wrong. Mm-hmm. Having at least a well thought out, this is what we're thinking and here's why. Mm-hmm. I think that makes everyone's life, especially your superintendent comms, hopefully somewhat easier when
But that
people
will for
ask
sure
questions.
come at the budget hearing.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, at that point, we will have a budget that
Yeah.
probably
Well,
is
and
much.
And that's always the challenge,
Yeah,
right?
and so, at that point too, then I think we have to have the discussion around the other two paraprofessionals at the primary school
Yeah.
that Mrs. Blaisdell
Blaisdell
made
asked for
the
as well.
similar case for.
Absolutely.
So,
Thought.
Yeah.
so I can go back and,
Yeah, I'm sorry to put you on the spot this way.
That's
We know what we need to do. We can't afford to do what we know we have to do. And that puts us in an awkward position, at least. So, any other thoughts? Okay. So thank you for the recommended budget. And it'll be an ongoing work.
so can we just, can I get some clarity in terms of what I believe I'm hearing from the school committee is you'd like me to update the budget to include five additional paraprofessionals. Is that?
I have no difficulty supporting that
Okay.
with the FinCom and the Board of Selectmen and at town meeting if we have to.
Okay.
Because I think we clearly understand that if we have those extra staff, we believe we have evidence that our performance will improve.
You don't want to just throw the ELA teacher in there too?
Yep. And that would provide,
Yeah, where's the end? I know that's the problem.
yeah.
It's going to hurt us to ask, actually. What are they going to say? No? Ultimately?
Well, usually we wind up with a budget that's, substantially below
Right.
what we've asked.
Right.
And I think it's wise that we go in with something that is our best shot at what we can believe will have the biggest impact. And I think that this is what we're talking about at this point.
Right. What's the right number for
What, for expending this money, how will that result in, a better educational outcome? And I think that's really what we want, what our message ought to be.
Which is why we held that workshop earlier this year to
Right.
talk about performance, so we would understand these trades in a way that we could explain. I found it very valuable myself. But.
Well, and by including everything on the table now, you can have the discussion when it comes to prioritizing with whatever the funds actually end up being.
Because we will have
Yeah.
that, I'm sure. Okay, any other thoughts, comments? Do you need more clarification?
I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we're up to the TC Passios and Brooks House boundaries. We had some handouts at our last meeting. I think you guys should have them available maybe to talk about. Would you like to start this, or would you like me to start, Mrs. Collins?
Either you or Mr. Mackin, or, yeah, you can start.
Okay. So we've had a lot of discussion about what the, what the plan is for transferring TC Passios to the town, which we're planning to do. But there's been some confusion, it seems to me, about what the rules are about the size of the parcel that we have to define before we make a vote to transfer the property to the town. And I think we finally have some clarity on that. And my understanding is we need a 40-foot space in the front of the building and 15 feet on each of the other three sides. Is that accurate?
It's 20 in the rear.
20 in the rear, 15 on the
15 on
left
the
and
side.
right, and 40 in the front.
Front.
So the confusion was, we had understood, or previously,
With a 100-foot frontage
Yeah,
for
right.
roadway.
but the main confusion was we understood we needed a 40-foot buffer on each side, which is not actually the regulation. And so there is a drawing, I don't know if there's a handout, probably
I
not.
can provide one.
Okay, great. That shows, that these are not the actual, this is not nobody's gone out and surveyed this. These are not the meets and bounds that we would vote to approve. That would have to be done in an official way, and it will cost money, and it will not come out of the school committee budget, to define the meets and bounds of the property transfer. But this is the guideline we have before us to consider. Does anybody have any thoughts or discussion on this?
I did share this with the reuse committee on Monday, and my purpose in having our designer do this for us was to give us what the minimum lot size was.
Right.
This does not define what the lot size is that we will eventually
Right. This is the
act
minimum
upon.
spot.
This is a starting point.
Right.
And that there will be further discussion, about what the needs of the school are versus what the needs for a potential reuse are. And I think that that's going to be an ongoing discussion.
Okay.
I think at some point, there may be a need for some kind of a joint meeting between the groups in order to discuss it.
Right.
But I think that this is the starting point.
So the great advantage of this is there's been a lot of discussion about the parking spots that are part of the school building that were going to be impacted by this transfer. With this 15-foot setback, there are no conflicts with those parking spots, as far as I can tell.
Well, what will
looking at the
happen
image.
is that at least the parking spots that abut the new drive
Right,
will remain as part of the project.
right. There's a few that are impacted here, right up against that.
Yeah, I think it's about, it cuts that particular part in half in
Right.
terms of the available parking.
Right.
From 30 down.
To
I
15-ish,
think there's,
as opposed to getting rid of the entire thing, which is what
Correct.
we were afraid of would
Correct.
happen if we went with the 40-foot setback.
right.
And it also maintains the Kids Kingdom and
Right, we
Connors
definitely-
Memorial Playground as
As
school
school property.
property.
I would just caution folks that one of the things that, there's a labeling here which I'll have corrected, which is that there is a conceptual drawing of a possible roadway that will allow that to be an actual lot, because currently it doesn't have the frontage to be an actual lot.
And that's this Memorial Drive
And that
extension.
would be, but it is actually not Memorial Drive, since Memorial Drive already has two entrances.
Right.
One-
It's a new road.
It's a new road. So it won't be an extension of Memorial Drive, it will be a brand-new road.
Right. Okay, so what would the Building Reuse Committee like us to do?
I think just for us to identify what we think we would need to maintain. In other words, I think it's, for us to start a discussion among ourselves about what the future needs might be that would require us to keep
Any of the property?
any of the property that's behind the school or
Right,
on the north side. I think the discussion is about how much of the north side would we maintain.
okay, so it's really not the east side anymore that's a topic of discussion. It's really how far in the back
Right.
do we go? Okay. Do you guys have any thoughts? Right, so this space in the back is contiguous with the parking lot
Yep.
at the new building. It could conceivably be used in the future for additional parking or whatever we need for the new building down the road. That's the advantage to holding on to it, is for
Correct.
unforeseen needs. From my perspective, I'd like to transfer the minimum amount that makes the property valuable to the town for marketing and not
Yep.
give away, you
That
know.
red line right there.
Right. Well, if that's sufficient, I don't really know what the building reuse committee feels about that. Is that,
No, but I agree. The minimum, give the minimum amount back, right? And I think that makes it palatable for the town to be able to market it and potentially do something with it.
Right.
I think keeping some property over by the new parking lot, which is starting to look really nice every time I drive by, right?
yeah,
I think, because we all know that we always run out of parking, right? There, we may need more room over there at some point, right? We may need something else over there. So I think minimum amount is what I would support.
okay. So we should for sure set up a joint meeting.
Okay.
Just so we can all sit down in one place at one time and talk about things, because, you know,
I have a quick question.
sure, what's up?
Damon McQuaid, 30 Cushing Lane. I'm a member of the Building Reuse Committee and also the Planning Board, but I'm not here to represent any of them tonight, just citizen. Thank Mike Mackin for the good recap of the committee right there. I think a joint meeting would be really helpful about this. I look forward to that. And I just wanted to advocate for the importance of this parcel to the future of the center of Lunenburg. Even on like the most superficial level, if we gave the building away, we still mitigate over $1 million in demolition costs for the town. No one's saying we're going to give the building away because the property's worth much more than that. We can use those revenues to fix up some of our other deteriorating town buildings potentially. And I've already heard people say to that point that, oh, just spend $1 million, knock the school down, keep the property, don't break up the campus. But I think we're not breaking up the campus by getting rid of this parcel. We're creating opportunities for the campus to make something really great for the community, really great for the kids. In my vision of this property, I would see the town bringing in an investor who would have the interest in creating a village concept business area here. Business community, really, with a variety of uses. An environment that creates office space for local businesses who can provide internships to students. High school students, college students need them too when they're on break, and kids need jobs when they graduate. The town spends a lot of money. You guys put a lot of effort into making sure our kids have the best education possible, to get in the best college possible, and be successful afterwards. But right now, there's limited job opportunities in town, and I think anything we can do to create more good job opportunities for these kids just helps the goal in general. Aside from just office space, I mean, imagine if someone came in and put a fitness center in here, something that we really don't have in town, but a fitness center right next to the school in walking distance, you know, maybe a membership reduction for high school athletes, that'd be, I mean, ideal for the student athletes in the community. And even beyond that, I just see it as a quality of life boost for the students on the campus too. Because I mean, time's flying by, but I didn't graduate from Lunenburg High School too long ago. I got my 10-year reunion coming up. And I just think back to what was important as a kid at that age. And when you're in middle school, early high school, you don't have a car. Your world's only as big as how far you can walk and how far you can bike. To have a good, viable community in the center of town and walking distance of the school with uses that interest them. I mean, for instance, like yoga places are popular these days, hangout spots, like burger joint's not the healthiest option, but somewhere healthier, maybe a Panera or something went in there. I'm sure the faculty would appreciate a coffee shop in there that they could go to on their breaks, but it's just a quality of life boost to get the kids staying in a safe part of the community after school, spending time, meeting with their friends, being in the community and being responsible citizens. I mean, that's a big part of growing up. And I think there's just so many valuable aspects that this parcel could bring to the school campus. And that's why I think it's really important that we develop a property line that is amenable to everyone, but really supports a good development of this parcel so we can create an atmosphere like that that would be good for everyone.
Right, so we have, I think, been very clear that our intention is to transfer the building to the town
Yep.
Yeah.
once we're done with it, and not until we're done with it. We do need to run the heating plant until we're not in the high school,
Yep.
because it does heat the high school. So we really do need it for a little while longer. But I don't think there's been any discussion on the school committee side about not transferring the property to the town. The question has always been, what is the property? What are the boundaries? And our goals, we have a couple of goals. One is to first do no harm to the building project that's going on over there right now. We don't want to interfere with our partnership with the MSBA or anyone else. We've spent 10 years building that relationship and getting to the point where we're building the building, and we don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot at the last minute.
Yep.
And the second thing that I personally am concerned about is if we try to sell the property and we can't, and there is no viable buyer, because I'm personally not, if I look at the business model, I see a lot of empty space that's just down the street from the new building that just never seems to be able to get rented and turned into anything. So I do worry that there will not be a buyer that does come forward. And if that happens, I would like to see the property remain part of the school campus. But I think we've all signed up to find a parcel that we can try and sell first.
Great, I appreciate that. And again, like you're talking about, I think from the building reuse, we kind of agreed on the southeast and west of the building. It's that north boundary that I think, I mean, it says 20 feet on here, but I think we need to make that amenable to getting parking back there for that building, because part of the village district is getting parking behind buildings. I really don't imagine one tenant taking the whole building, so you're going to need parking around the whole facility, as well as fire access around the whole facility. So I believe that, I mean, we'll talk about it more when we have the joint meeting, I think, but making sure there's at least, 150 feet back there, I think would be really good.
I don't actually know how far back that our property goes.
Property goes.
Oh, it
yeah.
goes pretty far back.
Um,
It starts cutting on an angle, but,
Right.
yeah. And it sounds like a lot, 150 feet, but you can see what 100 feet looks like on the little map here, and it's
Right.
not a lot on that scale.
Right.
So
Well,
that,
we'll be
again,
happy
we'll
to
talk
talk
about
about
that in
it.
the joint meeting, but I just
Right.
want to give my input and thank you guys.
Thank you.
I just want to noted that, because I had shared this some time ago with the reuse committee, that it is our designer and our contract manager's belief that if all goes well, that since any demolition is a site which is only reimbursed at a certain level, and we're beyond that level already, that our owner contingency may be sufficient towards the end of the project, that if we so wished, when they demolished the high school, that we might be capable of also doing patios. I let the reuse committee know that only so that if, in fact, the land is more valuable than
Right.
the building, that we might have an ability to do something about it.
Right. Okay, well, we'll try and find a time to meet with a giant group of people, and it'll be a party. Any other thoughts on this, or anything that you'd like to bring up
No,
that we haven't
it's
talked
just
about?
saying, I don't know that we have posted this diagram yet,
then
but
we
we
should
will
do
get
that.
it up there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we should do that.
It might be helpful to see if we can get a view that extends back
Extends
too,
the wh- to
don't
the
you
whole-
think?
Yeah, to the whole piece there.
Property line, right.
Right.
I'm sure that's easily done. I think the scale was given here just so it was clear.
Sure.
Right, and just when you post it, please mark it as,
Yes.
Draft.
For
This is not-
discussion, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
These are not lines that have been measured by any
Nor has it been
surveyor.
agreed to by anybody.
Right, it's conceptual,
It's conceptual.
right. I think nobody cares about Brooks House, though, unless I'm missing the boat. Okay, we have some donations to talk about.
We do, Dr. Berthium. I want to call to the committee's attention that the class of 1979 has some revenue that has remained within their class coffers for some time now, and $348.73 to be exact. And they would like to donate that to Lunenburg High School to be used. It's an unrestricted gift to be used for the students and programs, however the administration there would deem most appropriate. So I'm recommending that we accept this gift from the class of 1979 with thanks.
That would be great. That was my brother's graduation.
Oh,
I'll
was
have
it?
to thank him for
Yes,
the donation.
yes. And then also, I need to call to everyone's attention that we've received some more checks for box tops. And we've received a check for $767.40. And that was for the primary school. A contribution, or the amount of box tops that will turn in. I think that's just got to be a real large amount of box tops to generate $767. And I do want to thank everybody that saves those. I know that lots of family members, I brought back some from Wyoming when I came home because I have encouraged my family to help out a little bit there as well. But what I wanted to say is that Cheryl Salvatore continues to trim those up to the specifications that's required and send those in, and just we really are appreciative of her efforts and all the parent volunteers that are taking care of that.
Primary school. It's
Okay.
Jessica Frank.
Oh, Jessica's doing it. Okay, thank you.
Taken over. That's 7,000 box, over 7,000 box.
Yeah,
That's definitely, we appreciate their support.
absolutely. It does help.
It adds
And
up.
they make good use of it. So recommend acknowledgement of that as well. So.
Is there a motion to that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we have first reading of revised policies for 5104 and 5409. These are student discipline policies.
They are, Dr. Berthuman, the policies you've received, as well as been able to review the school committee. Once again, these are updates based upon changes in the state law. We did work with our legal counsel around these. We've been working for the last several months on them, trying to make sure that they are representative of the changes that have been made around student discipline and new requirements that schools that have been put in place. You know, our goal is always for students to be able to be part and receive an education. Not having students in school is not a positive thing. There are circumstances that warrant that, but these new policies provide for some additional supports for students that may have to be removed from school for various periods of time. And so these are all now consistent with the state law that is in place at this point in time, and we'd like to move them forward and have them fully within our policy manual, as well as then communicated out to parents and students.
Does anybody have any comments or want to move to waive the first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Just again, as with all policies, these will be on the website. If anybody wants to read them and give us feedback, we'd really appreciate it. This policy being the first reading, will have its third reading, which is generally when we accept it as policy at our first meeting in February. So there's a good month to give us feedback if anybody has anything to offer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. I should also have mentioned that we did post our calendar, our recommended calendar for next year. We talked about this at our last meeting, but it wasn't televised, and I don't think we had any press at that. So I want to make sure parents realize that that is posted on our website. It looks an awful lot like what was recommended by the Calendar Advisory Committee. It might be identical except for half days, if I'm pretty sure that that's true. But we'd love to get feedback on that. Our current plan is to approve that calendar for next year at our next meeting, right?
At the
Or-
next meeting.
Yep. So this is a great time for people.
Or February.
We could do it in February if, yeah, either way. But it'd be good if people started looking at it and thinking about next year and give us the feedback now before it becomes,
Right.
before it gets implemented,
Yeah.
so that we can,
First one in February, we want to.
we can do it then if that's, I think that's our latest date. We promised we would always do it by the first meeting in February.
All right.
Right. And sometimes those meetings get canceled due to snow,
Okay. All right.
so, did last year. Okay, is there any public comment from the board? Anybody? Okay, public comment from the floor? Ms. Luck? Would you-
Phyllis Luck, 50 Sunset Lane. I wanted to say that I was listening to the discussion about class size and the paraprofessionals, and I fully support the superintendent's recommendation to add 2 teachers at the middle school. From my 18 years of teaching experience, there is nothing that beats a manageable class size. Kids don't fall through the cracks. They get more attention from their teacher. They connect better with their teacher. Paras are nice, but, I would take those 5 paras and trade those for a teacher anytime. It's just way better for the teacher, for the kids. And so I appreciate your efforts to try to make the class sizes more manageable. I think that just really helps everyone. And I know that Mr. Londa made a recommendation earlier, but I don't know, maybe because where I'm sitting, I could not understand the discussion, so I would just like to know what his recommendation was.
Around the capital plan?
Well, his recommendation about the asbestos removal and stuff, I just couldn't hear any of it.
Sorry, the recommendation is that we have 100, I'm going to,
130, something
134,000,
like that.
I think, that was approved by, 138, that was approved last year by the capital plan. We're going to go out on bids, and the base bid will be for doing what we need to do to TCP, to Turkey Hill, in order to enable us to move the district offices over there next summer. So this coming summer, we would do the abatement that would let us move the offices over there the following summer. And then there will be options attached to the bid that could be awarded if the capital planning committee provides the additional dollars that we've requested for next year.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Right, okay. All right, reports. I do not have a FinCom meeting report. They are meeting tomorrow. School committee, school councils?
We have a meeting on the 28th at primary school,
Okay,
so we haven't had one.
28th. Any of the others? Nope. PTO?
Next Monday.
Okay. Policy has not met. I think do we still need to meet? I think maybe not after we did the discipline. Yeah, so I'm not sure we need to meet again, but if we do, I'll let you know at the next meeting what our schedule is. I think we might be actually done for the year. Capital planning?
We have another meeting next Tuesday at 4:30 here.
Okay. Here, great. Wellness, I think that's Ms. Shapiro. Paxal, it's also. Reuse, Mr. Mackin?
I basically summarized the meeting of my previous.
Right. Calendar advisory?
We have one tomorrow.
We do.
Okay,
Starting to look at start times.
Yeah,
excellent.
phase 2.
Good. Okay, we have 2 topics for future discussion. First, are there any other topics we need to add to the list? And if not, then maybe it's worth thinking about, I think we need to start down the path of the one-on-one computer initiative workshop scheduling. So I'll send around some dates. I'll talk to Ms. Combs
Okay.
for later this month or early in February, and then you guys can all let me know what works, and we'll try and settle on something in the next month or so.
Okay.
Okay?
And Dr. Berthew, maybe before you might move to adjournment, if you could, I wanted just to call to your attention, there's an invitation, and this invitation goes out to the community, but the Lunenburg Primary School Student Council, whose motto is "We help others and we solve problems," is inviting the public to a dedication of the Buddy Bench for Saturday, January 24th at the Lunenburg Primary School Playground at 1:00 p.m. And of course, this bench is provided and dedicated to the memory of Bob Miklevec and all the work that he did in teaching us all how to care for each other. So the Buddy Bench invitations you have before you, and we'll be posting this. I think we've already put the sign up at the Passios
Yes, Tim,
as well.
Yep.
So, thank you.
I'll be there. I'll see you then. Anything else before is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you.
What's going on? Are you gonna-
It's not bad.